This lesson starts with your first solo. The guitar is a wonderful instrument that you could play with people in bands and duets, and it's an instrument that can stand on its own, playing both melody and harmony at the same time. The first solo that you're playing here, as it says, it's a solo arrangement with melody and accompaniment. If you look at the music, it looks a little strange. What we're having here, if we added up all the beats, we'd probably be getting 8 beats per measure. But if you notice, there are stems going down on notes and stems going up, usually on the chords. These are like 2 different staffs. C, E, D, C is one line. The other line is 1, 2, 3, 4, the C chord played on the second beat. The rest on the first beat is for the chord not to be played on the first beat or the third and fourth beats. So the first measure would sound like this. Actually, I played a little more just to get into it. The melody of this piece are the notes with the stems going down, and the accompaniment are the notes and the chords with the stems going up. So listen to the first line, and you can hear where the melody is and where the accompaniment is. Pretty obvious. The chords should be played in time. When playing solo guitar, many people play rubato, and it's okay to play rubato with musical choices and not because of physical choices. Try and play these solos as steady as possible. Maybe you want to slow down a little in places that you feel that need that, but only because you hear it that way and not because you can't play it as fast as you would like to. Those of you who already know chords will be seeing that we're playing many chord forms here: G7, C7, F, F minor, diminished chords. Notice those. The main thing is to hear the melody and hear the pretty chords behind it. It may be your first solo, but Bill always wrote beautiful chord solos. So here is first solo. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are some tricky fingerings in this chord solo. One of them is on the second line, 4th measure. You're playing E with your second finger, and then you're going to get B flat, C, and E. With your 4th finger, you're going to get B flat, which prepares you so that you can play the C with your 3rd finger. So that would be The next line, the last two measures, B flat, and then getting the C sharp with your fourth finger and the E with your third finger. And then getting the B with your second finger and moving the third and fourth fingers up. So that those two measures sound and look like this. Then we're back to the C chord. As it says at the bottom of the page, to be sure to hold all the notes for the full time values. How do you do that? That is playing legato. And many times it's planning on how the chord and the note coincide with each other. Let's just talk about the third line that I had just mentioned, the fourth measure, where you have the G, the A, the B flat. Well, when I play that G, I'm already planning and have my fourth finger on the B. So it's already, it's not, it's, and then the next one I play the A, and then I'm already holding F, A, C. And then when I hit the B flat, I'm already playing and fingering those notes as I finger the first note. So this goes, then it's C chord, A minor chord, then I'm playing. So it's many times looking at the full measure and figuring out how you're going to play the chord, and fingering that chord and then playing the bass note. Page 24, we start with chord diagrams. Many of you have probably been exposed to these chord diagrams. The lines going down are the strings. The horizontal lines represent the frets. And the dots show where your fingers should be placed. Let's see, 0 means that the strings are open, and X means that you don't play that string or the string is muted. We have 4 chords here, actually 5 chords with the 1 on top. We have a C major chord, C7, F major, F minor, and a G7. All these chords you have already read in the previous pages in one form or another. The F minor you had in the first solo where you go, you had part of that. Here's a fuller chord of F minor. Now the hard thing with F minor and F major is flattening that first finger. Usually I don't flatten the first finger flat straight on. What I do is it's a little on the left side of the finger. So it's not, but it's like this. F minor, instead of straight. I would have, with my hand size, I would have problems reaching. So you notice? Exercise 1 uses these chords, and it's very important to use the ones that are stated in the chord symbols. You may already know a different C or a different C7, but we just want you to add these to your repertoire of chords so that you have choices. Again, the little commas are pause markings, so you have some type of a rhythm. Long, short, long, short. Exercise 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice the rest on beat 4 and that I stopped it. And notice that I did not use rest strokes. I did not go. These are rhythm chords, so you can use, you just flick your wrist. Look at my right hand. I'm just flicking my wrist. I'm not moving my arm up and down. I'm just... Exercise 2, you have more chords. A minor, D minor, E7. Notice that the D minor, the note D with your is played with your 4th finger, not your 3rd. That's because most often in this exercise you go to E7 from the D minor, and you don't have to move that 4th finger to play that D of the E7. So this goes like this. Exercise 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep that 4th finger down. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Rest. Exercise 3 uses all these forms. 1, 2, 3, 4. F minor. Rest. Notice that when I play F major to F minor, I really don't move my 3rd and 4th fingers off. And I keep my 3rd finger down when I go to C. And then when I play A minor, all these chord forms should be memorized so that you can play these chords when looking at a sheet of music that has chord symbols on it. Page 25 is our 2nd solo, and it comes pretty quickly after our 1st solo. You can still continue to work on the 1st solo and then add the 2nd solo after you think you have the 1st solo under your fingers a little more. If you already have it fairly well, the 1st solo, come and play this with me and start studying the 2nd solo. The difference between the 1st solo and the 2nd solo is that the 1st solo had the melody below the chords. In the 2nd solo, the melody is above the accompaniment. So this takes concentration of playing the chords on the lower strings and now the melody on the top strings. And if you notice, in this solo, the melody are the notes with the stems going up, and the accompaniment are the chords and notes with the stems going down. So listen to 2nd solo. 1, 2, 3, 4. As it says at the bottom of the page, hold all the notes for the full time value. Well, I'm always working on that, and I guess you will be too. This is sounds like a simple solo, but it is a solo that you have to concentrate on holding notes, planning out the chords, and also at times stopping notes from ringing. Let's talk about where to stop the notes from ringing. On the fourth line, third measure, is where we start the B section. It starts at G sharp, then there's a chord, then there's a rest for the chord and the note B. So it shouldn't be played this way. It really should be played okay, that's one place. And the other places are where to hold all these chords, or two notes sometimes. In the third measure of the second line, you have a B and a G. Notice they're whole notes. They are difficult to hold throughout the measure, but try it. At least try and hear the B. Hear that? And then that chord, which is in that last measure of the second line and also the first measure of the whole piece. Try and hold that chord for 4 beats. Hold the C and the E down 4 beats. Many of these chords are chords that you have just learned. F minor, G7. There is a D7 in there, but you'll be learning that later. The last measure, C chord, then this is really an F chord with a G bass, but make sure that the 5th string is not ringing. Remember, we played this before. We're adding 2 more notes. Last 2 measures are, and you can retard. One other thing about this page, you notice at the time signature we have a C for common time, which there's a reminder, C common time is really 4/4 time. Again, 4 beats for measure, for each measure, and the quarter note gets 1 beat. A2-3 duet. You didn't think we were going to get away from 8th notes this quickly. Well, we're back to 8th notes. Playing in the C scale, we have an etude that has the first part consecutive 8th notes that are in line with each other. We also have a part that's less dense rhythmically, which means that there aren't as many 8th notes. Right? So this is really a review and also a how should I say, call it an exercise that will strengthen your hand and also continue getting your alternate picking together. Part 1, A2-3. 1, 2, 3, 4. really work on the alternate picking on this. I do not have these pieces memorized, so when I'm reading this, I am always looking ahead and looking at the contour of the lines, and seeing that the melody is going up, going stepwise, looking at the rhythms, and getting ready for the next rhythm and notes. On the second line, last measure, we have a phrase that starts on the and of 3. It's 1, 2, 3. Those pickups. And da da. It starts on the and of 3. I want you to start with an upstroke on the G. So we're still continuing this 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 1, 2, and we have a dotted quarter note going into an eighth note on the E. The E should be played with an upstroke. So I'll take it from the last measure of the second line and go into the first measure of the third line. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So keep that in mind. Always count. At first, you might have to count out loud. Then start counting quieter, and then just to yourself. So practice part 1. Part 2 starts with almost 2 measures rest. You have a whole measure, 4 beats, rest in the first measure, and then the second measure, you have 3.5 beats, and the first note comes in on the and of 4. So I would count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I would be playing that note. Here it is, part 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Watch out in part 2, the counting is a little tricky, going from the last measure in the second line to the first measure in the third line. The last measure in the second line is 1 and 2 and 3, 4, and you expect to come in on 1 of the next measure, but you come in on 2. So it's 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4. So let's try that together. From the second line, last measure, into the first line of the third measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1. Good. Very good. So now you practice that on your own. 1, 2, 3, 4. Page 27, picking etude number 1. Bill writes here for development of the right hand. To me, this page is as hard as it gets, and it's not only for the development of the right hand, it's mostly, for me, development of the left hand, holding these notes out so that they keep ringing and switching fingers. This book covers so many parts of your playing that you always find a part that you really have to work on, and this is one of the pages I've had to work on a lot. The preparation for the etude is the exercise at the top of the page, where you're playing always, and what is asked here for is mostly downstroke, except for actually the last 2 beats of the first line, but we'll get there. First couple measures, look at this. You don't know how long it takes me to get that nice and smooth. To me, most guitarists, this is one of the hardest things to play right here, because the finger has to, your index finger has to be curved enough to have the first string ring. Moving up, if we look at just the chords, so then we add the note G on the bottom of them as 8 notes. Here we're going to switch to our 3rd and 4th fingers. If you notice, we have basically the same thing on each line, but we have a different fingering. The first line we have a fingering with C, and then we go to the A and the F with the 2nd and 3rd finger. The second line we do, and then we're going to go to the 3rd and 4th finger for the A and the F. That's very difficult. So, here is etude, page 27. There is a retard on the 3rd line, at the end of the 3rd line, and I'll go a tempo, meaning I'll go back to the original tempo on the 4th line. 1 and 2, 3, 4. Page 28, we have a new time signature. Page 28 is a duet called 2-2. And if you notice, instead of common time, we have a slash through the C, meaning common time. Remember, common time, or C, means 4/4. 4 beats per measure. The quarter note equals 1 beat. As you notice, the C has a slash through it. That means cut time, meaning 2/2. There are 2 beats per measure, and the half note gets 1 beat. So instead of counting the first 2 measures, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, it would be 1 and 2 and the quarter notes equal 8 are half a beat. Ba 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 ba. 1 and 2 and. So here's the tempo for our cut time. We're going to be starting off with 2 measures rests. So it would be 1, 2, then the 2 measures. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2 again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Before we start playing this duet, let's look at the form that we have here. We have sort of what people call a road map. If we look at the way we played this, we would be starting at the beginning of page 28, going all the way to page 29, and we come to 2 measures rest, and at the second measure rest of the first part, it says DS al coda. That means that we go back and play it from the sign, which is the 3rd measure on the first line. And then when we get to that coda sign, we skip to the bottom of the second page where the coda is. It's a little confusing, but I'll say it again. We play all the way through till we get to DS al coda. At the end of that measure, we go where the sign is, which is the 3rd measure of the piece, and we play all the way to the coda sign, which is the 3rd measure of the second page, first line, and skip to the coda. It would be good right now, instead of looking at me play this first part, to look at the music and follow along. Again, we're going to start off with 2 measures rest after I count off. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1. Let's talk about the rhythm of some of these chords and attacks. The first one that we should look at is on the third measure of the fourth line. It's a quarter, rest, half note, quarter note. They're chords. So it's 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1, 2. 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1, 2. 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1. Let's go on with that on the last two measures of the first page. I'll play it first. 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Let's take it there again. 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now here's one that you have to be very strong at. Right after that, it's 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2. Let's do those four measures. 1, 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2. And then that's followed by 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So it's a little confusing. If you're having problems finding out how to count this, you can double the time and go and make the eighth notes one beat, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say we're at the last two measures on the first line of the second page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. So practice part 1. And now I will play the second part. Second part to 2-2 duet. 1, 2, 1, 2. Let's go over some of the rhythms in this second part. They're a little tricky. Third measure. whenever you have something coming in on 2 and is held, it really feels syncopated. Third measure of the bottom line is 1, 2. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. The second page, first 2 measures are 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1. Again, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1. 2 and 1, 2 and 1. If you're having problems, you could change it into counting eighth notes or half or quarter notes. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Change it into 4, 4. Count the quarter notes twice as fast as the half notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and that's basically the hardest part. The other part that's hard is getting used to reading this roadmap of going from the end of the first part to the sign, DS, I'll sign, to the sign, and going to the sign to the coda, sign, and then dropping down to the coda on the bottom. You're going to find this a lot in music. It's really a shortcut, and it stops you from reading like 4 pages. This would be like 4 pages long. Here we're fitted on 2 pages. 1, 2, 1, 2. This is the end of the lesson that started with the chord solos. So you've really have done a lot in this lesson. You had your first chord solo, take it nice and slow, everything clear. You had your rhythms, your rhythm chords and chord forms of the C, C7, F, F minor, the A minor, the D minor, the E7, A minor. You had your second chord solo where you had the melody on the top and the chords on the bottom. Your duet, A2-3, and the hard picking exercise, and now this piece in cut time. So this takes a lot of work.